friends, we have a special guest presenter today, Miss Petra Pierre Robertson. As an avid historian, her writing ministry began when she wrote her first book at age 9. She is an asset of our heritage of writers. She has written novels and articles for the Caribbean Union and the General Conference of Adventists. Some of her books include The Sixth Day, Second Chances, and Lost in the Woods. Let us sit back attentively as Auntie Petra now speaks to us at this moment.
Oh, good morning, everyone. I love the enthusiasm. I love the new name too. Oh, she is so sweet. All right, so good morning. Well, actually, I haven't written for the General Conference. I've written for the Priorities magazine, that's Inter-American Division. So just to clear that, right? And Petrona is actually my mom's middle name. I was born on my mother's birthday. Her name is Olga Petrona Pierre. So because I was born on her birthday, she gave me her name, which is Petronetta. And of course, she got the middle name right, Pierre Robertson, because my mom gave me her name. So just clarification, but very good and very enthusiastic, and I love it. And it's good to be here today. I want to commend this initiative. I want to commend you for recognizing local authors. As a librarian, because I'm also a librarian, it is a peeve of mine that persons just like to go outside to read and they do not read local. So I hope after Adventist Heritage Week, you would not just read Adventist local material, but you would read Caribbean local material. In other words, you would read material that reflects your reality and your identity, right? But allow me to share the screen. So because I know 424 persons attention, so I can't even ask to write in the chat because by the time we reach 424, time might be finished, right? So I'll try to make it interactive without going into extra time. So allow me to share the screen and then, yes. So yes, I want to share that screen. Give you a slideshow and we will go from the, and of course I have to be on my P's and Q's because I heard it is being recorded, you know. If it wasn't being recorded, well, you know, we would have, I would not have been on my P's and Q's, okay? So if you find them singing a little more dignified than usual, it's because it's being saved for posterity. All right, so let's bow our heads, Father in heaven, as we go through this session. We thank you for the rich heritage that you have given us. We thank you for our pioneers who have gone before, who saw the vision in education, health, publishing, mission, and they have passed it on. And may we also pass it on to those who come after us. We run this leg of the race. May we also utilize our gifts and our talents to spread the message and pass on a legacy for those who come after. I thank you for allowing Westport and Maracas and Pinehaven to see the importance of carrying on the tradition, the oral tradition, the written tradition, a tradition that ensures that what was done before will not be forgotten, a tradition that will ensure that we will not be condemned to repeat history because of errors of the past, and also a tradition that ensures that we remember, if you have led us in the past, we have nothing to fear for the future. Thank you for the opportunity to bring up that past, make our impact in the present, and impact the future. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so I was told to share with you my journey as an author and link it with Adventist heritage and all of that in 20 minutes. So to make sure it is 20 minutes, I did a slide. So the slide will keep me on time. So we are looking at Adventist heritage, my journey as an author. And this is Adventist Heritage Week. So let me foreground. So for primary school, I have to talk to the youngest, who might be 4 years old. The youngest is 4 years old, right? If you are 4 years old, just put in the chat, yes, I am 4 years old. So I will see that we have any 4 or 5-year-olds. Someone says they love my books and segments. Thank you so much, Shirma, and spread the word so other persons would buy. So those of you, right, so we do have a 4-year-old. So I am pitching this to the 4-year-old, and 4-year-old, if something is too big, ask your teacher, message them one time and say, Miss, what that mean? And take a note to ask me after. So we have 4 and 5-year-olds, right? So we are looking at Adventist Heritage Week. So to the 4 and 5-year-old, when we talk heritage, we are talking, and your teacher give you a little piece there. Let me jump to the definition of heritage. We are looking at inherited tradition, monuments, objects, and culture. So when we talk about Adventist heritage, we are saying, how do we keep the Sabbath? How do we have Adventist schools? It didn't always have Adventist schools. How do we have Adventist health institution, community hospital? I'll keep it local for what you understand. So how do we have a community hospital, which is an Adventist hospital? How do we have mission stories? Why do we have to go and give trucks and so on? All of that we inherited from the pioneers, inherited traditions, inherited monuments. So I wouldn't be checking. That's okay. I just saw the ages, so you don't have to go in the chat anymore. As I said, it's 400 and something of us, so I wouldn't be able to chat. I only wanted who was 4 and 5, and I got my answer. So you don't need to go to the chat again. Okay, I got my answer already. So don't kill the poor chat. Right. So when we talk about Adventist Heritage Week, we are saying there are certain things we practice now, certain things we have now, certain things we continue to do now because our pioneers. And why are we doing it this week? We are doing it this week because in 1844, the Millerites, that is the early Adventists who studied William Miller Pathfinders who studied William Miller. Somebody has to remote and I click OK. I hope it was legal. This person, no, okay. So could you, someone asked for remote control of my screen. Could you take that back, please? Because obviously somebody's playing with the device. So someone asked for remote control. Please force take back that remote control. I don't want people messing with my slides, and they have started already. Right. So as I was saying, when we look at Adventist Heritage Week, we are looking at the things that we inherited from the Millerites who thought Christ was going to come, and he didn't come, but they thought he was going to come in October 22nd, 1844. But one of the traditions and one of the beliefs we inherited is that Christ moved into the most holy place on October 22nd. So during the week of October 20th going down, so this day in history, 100 and something years ago, our Adventist pioneers were waiting for Christ to come. They were praying and fasting. You are trying with me? They were praying and fasting and waiting for Christ to come. But Christ didn't come. And since then, that is a heritage we remember. We remember the great disappointment. So that's Adventist heritage. After that, they had different 4 main pillars: publishing, health, mission, and education. Today, this week, we are focusing on publishing. So for the publishing, Ellen White had a vision on publishing in 1848. She had a vision on health in 1863. She had a vision on the importance of mission in 1874. And she had a vision on the importance of education in 1875. All of this was necessary because the church had come out of the dark ages when they had destroyed everything. I'm a librarian. When people move, they destroy the writings. They destroy the scrolls. They destroy the books. That's how important writing is. So during the dark ages, they destroyed Bibles written. They destroyed scrolls. They destroyed all the written documentation that would show what's supposed to be kept. They destroyed it. That is how important writing and publishing is. So when they destroy that, 100 and something, because you remember, 1844 unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. And remember, the period of the Dark Ages was a very long period. So during the period of the Dark Ages, when they destroyed all of that, by the time the pioneers came back on the scene, they were not keeping Sabbath. They didn't have the health message. They didn't have schools because everything was destroyed. So God gave Ellen White visions to share with the church so that the church could build back their traditions, build back their heritage. So today, the tradition we're going to talk about is publishing. In October the 22nd, you know, it's the interesting thing, between October the 20th and 22nd, 1848, not 1844 with the Great Disappointment. 4 years later, in 1848, between October the 20th and 22nd, Ellen White, they were praying for a way for publishing to connect with the Adventist message. They recognized how important writing was. And then after Ellen White's vision on the Sabbath, she got a vision about publishing. And she said, print a little paper and send it to the people. It must go clear around the world. So any of you little ones who want to write, your paper, what you write, will go beyond you. It will go to readers who you don't even know who read it. Some persons tell me, I've read your book, and I'm like, okay. Some persons on the World Wide Web and wherever read the book, I don't know them, but guess what? That little paper is going clear around the world, as Ellen White said. So it was a magazine to unite Adventists everywhere, and that conviction to utilize the written word led to Adventist publishing houses for both informative and evangelistic purpose. So you can write to inform, you can write to evangelize. So I'm going to share with you now about my writing. So you might be asking, anybody knows the difference between a writer and an author? Who can raise their hands quickly and tell me? What is the difference between a writer and an author? If you take too long, I will answer. All right, one person, unmute your mic and tell me. Eli, tell me, what's the difference? Unmute Eli. What's the difference between a writer and an author? Your hand is raised. Right? I'm not hearing you. Unmute your mic. Unmute your mic, Eli. Right.
It's not working. It's giving some trouble. But the difference between a writer and an author, writer writes the story and the author publishes the story.
Very good. Everybody give Eli a high five in the chat. Give a high five for Eli in the chat. Very good. Give him a little clap. That is very good. A writer can write anything. So a writer could write blogs, short stories. They might post stuff on the website. If you are posting stuff on the website, you are writing. If you are posting on social media, you know, a long script, you are writing. You may write a newspaper article. And when writers write, they finish one item and they move on to another item. An author, however, is someone who has published and sold their work. So an author would have a special skill. And you don't just write as an author, you know. That special skill to be able to write as an author, you need discipline, hard work, dedication, practice, and experience. I can tell you about it because when I write, I am up in the night, my blood tongue drops. I cannot think about anything else but writing. I'm sleeping with pen and paper below my pillow. My phone is right here to wake up in the night and jot down stuff. And you can spend years on one book. For example, my first book, No Guarantee. I started writing that book in 1992. It started as a short story and I put it down. And then persons kept saying, what about that short story? So I give them it to read and they say, we want more, develop it now. So I developed it into a short book. Then they wanted more. So it ended up being 300 and something pages. It was published in 2015. But I started writing it in 1992. However, for The Uncontrollable Flame, I wrote it in 1 year. But the point is, you spend more time writing books than you spend as a writer. So for me, writing, I have written short stories in various genres, meaning different types of short stories. I've written monologues. I've written poems in church for various occasions. So even you young people, do you write? Anyone has written a poem or a short story or anything for a school program? Anyone? Unmute and tell me. Anyone has written? Let's go this time with Azarias. Oh yes, go ahead, Akiba. Have you written? No? Akiba, your hand is up. What have you written? What have you written? Anyone has written anything? Unmute and tell me what you have written.
Yes.
Who has written? Go ahead.
Yes,
Nigel.
I wrote something.
What did you write? What did you
I
write?
wrote something.
You wrote
I wrote a
something?
book.
You wrote a
Yes,
book?
I wrote a book as well. I wrote a story.
You wrote a story. Anything else?
I wrote
A poem?
I wrote a story.
Miss, I wrote something before.
No, I
wrote a poem.
anybody
I
wrote a
wrote
poem?
something before.
Poem. Nice, very good. Okay, so mute your
I wrote a
mics now. Mute your
poem.
mics now, and I want everybody to give them a hand clap. You wrote a story. So people have said they wrote a story, they wrote a poem, somebody wrote a book. I remember when my son was in primary school, he had to write a book and publish a book and stuff. So very good. I remember I wrote a story. And how many of you, your church has a little newsletter or your school has a newsletter? The other day I was going through my stuff and I saw that when I was going to St. George's, there was a newsletter where we could have written poems and stories, and we felt so proud. We wrote in the school magazine. So Westport, Maracas SDA, and Pine Haven have a newsletter and let the children write their poems and write their stories. They would feel so proud. And I've written AY programs. I wrote plays for the drama, and I wrote all of those things before I even published. Short story, monologue, poems, plays, if different AY programs. I did all of that before I became an author. And when I became an author, I published short stories in religious and Caribbean journals like the Priorities magazine. I wrote features in the Priorities magazine. I published AY program in Horizon, which is the Union Youth Department journal. I publish articles in Priorities magazine, as I told you. I publish articles in the journals of the University of the Southern Caribbean. And because I'm a librarian and I'm the professional, I have to publish. So I have to publish academically. So I publish chapters in a few academic books, like Caribbean Libraries in the 21st century. Recently, I published in domestic violence in the Caribbean. I can't remember the name of it, but that's a recent publication by Springer, one of the reputable publishers. And then on a personal level, I've written 5 novels and 1 religious autobiography, because for me, writing novels, that's my hobby, because I love to write. I am a stationery freak. I must always have pen and paper. Right. When I was younger, I wrote a story on how all my brothers and sisters, I wrote a story where all of them mommy find them by the road, who she find by the dustbin, who she find in a drain. But when she found me, she made me, and I was in hospital, and she loved this baby. You know, when I was small, I diss all of them, and I big me up. And they think, okay, then what you write? You think that comes you up and write about us? You know, they go on and hiding it. That was my first book. I laughed at them. Then there was a time a drunk man came in the yard, and I went like a reporter writing the story. He is going down the hill now, and because I love to write. All of that is writing, journalism, right? So you know the difference between a writer and an author. So here are some of my books. I have a religious autobiography called In His Own Words. Let me see if I have them there to show you in addition to. So I have In His Own Words. Tell me if you can see that. In His Own Words. That's one of the books I've written there, right? And then I have the 6th Day. Are you seeing the books? Are you seeing? Because somehow, let me change my screen, right? So I have written In His Own Words. This is a religious autobiography. It's the 6th Day. This is, some of you may have Lost in the Hills, which I wrote this for you all, right? So you all can read these two. Primary school children could read In His Own Words and Lost in the Hills. That's 2. But the first book I wrote was No Guarantee. This is a romance novel. You have to read 16 or 17 to read it, but it's on biblical and Christian principles, right? Getting to know you. Then I wrote Uncontrollable Flame, because the readers after No Guarantee say, you can't, I only plan to write 1 novel. But the readers loved it so much they begged for another one. So I was forced to go back and write another novel. And my professor, because I'll send my work to my university professor, Professor Morgan, said, Petra, you don't have to keep writing for these people. You know, writing takes time. Don't let them rush you, and don't write so long. So I tried to write a shorter book, because the first one was 390 pages. When I wrote the shorter book, the readers told me it finished too fast. So I said, Professor Morgan, I have to write longer books. So I did Second Chances, which is another 300 and something pages for the readers. And then they still wanted more. So I did the 6-day, but the 6 days on allegory, research what allegory means. There are symbols, animals are talking, animals possess the traits of humans, you know, and she's going into a dream world. And I symbolized the whole concept of the Sabbath and so on. So this was a complicated one I wrote. And then the young friend was saying, Auntie Petra, you're not writing anything for us. So I wrote Lost in the Hills. Well, let me tell you about Lost in the Hills. We were really lost in the hills. When I was a teenager, we went on a hike and didn't tell the church board, and we spent a night in the hills and soldiers rescue us. But because I loved to write, guess what I did? As soon as I reach back home, I write the story. Because like those of you say, write poems, I don't can't love to write. So this is Lost in the Hills. Watch. I wrote this story when I came back from the hike, 100, write the whole story. Let's see, look all the newspaper clippings and stuff. So when I reach home, I write out the whole book. You know why? Because I didn't want to forget anything. So this was my Lost in the Hills. You see, I have it here by Petra Pierre. So as soon as I reach home, I write out the whole account because I didn't want to forget. Because people say, how come you remember all of that from so long ago when you were a teenager? I say, I had written the book. I was a writer, but I didn't publish it. So I published it recently, and this now, the writing became this, the publication. So you see, right now, don't wait until you want to write to begin to write all your little short stories. Let me show you another one that will make you laugh. I saw it last night and I laughed till I cried. This is the diary that I wrote the stories about my brothers and sisters in. You see how old the diary is? See, I still have it. This way I write out that get found in dustbin and thing. Well, you know, Auntie Petra like to write and she's a stationery freak and she do tourist stuff. She's a librarian, so I keep everything. Right? The novels I wrote in 2 boxes downstairs in what I call my little den. Right? Watch this one. This is when I had this since in Form 1, this book, right? But I'm not going to get you any book, but I'll show you one of my stories I wrote in here. Watch. One of the stories I wrote. What's the name of the story? The Wild Wild West. I wrote a story on the Wild Wild West. Yes, I love to write. I write horror story. I write story on the wild. So I went through this the other day. This is from since I was in Form 1. All these things written here. These are my books, but they're not published. They are written. Maybe one day I'll publish them if I have time. And watch this. Auntie Petra is so busy because Auntie Petra is a librarian. Auntie Petra have to do too much stuff, but Auntie Petra have so much thing in her head to write. So guess what? You think I'm going to wait until I'm ready to write? No. You see this? This is a possible book on short stories that I haven't published yet. Short stories I would have written over the years, but I can't find time to publish it because I'm writing another story for studies I'm doing. Donna from Second Chances, that the readers begging me for Donna, who is one of the characters in this story, Second Chances. So I'm writing the story of one of the sub-characters in the story. So you see, writing never ends. Let's see how busy Auntie Petra is expressed. But guess what? Auntie Petra loves to write. And the pictures you see behind me reflect all my writing, Caribbean Libraries in 21st Century, Caribbean Musings. And this would be all the different articles and journals I would have written for. And then I did a little one that I didn't really sell this, but people took it. Well, I didn't really publish this, but I did a short story workshop. I did this book and people wanted it. So you see, where writing can take you. Auntie Petra has told you all a lot, eh? Yes, so look my early writings here. And you see in here, there are poems, there are AY programs. I would write scripts for the drama guild. We had a drama guild. They would ask me to write the scripts. Whenever pastors leaving, they ask me to write the poem. Whenever there is all year service or visitors day or end of year stuff. And I'm talking when I'm a teenager, you know, I'm not talking now. I'm talking when I was a little teenager in Form 1, 2, and 3, when I was in primary school. Petra, write a poem for us and come and say the poem for visitors day. So all of you who are writing, all of that would help you. So that when you become older, you would have all these writings. So I didn't just start to write. I loved writing so much. When I was your age, I was writing them in books. I just showed you all the books as evidence. So, you know, Auntie Petra not lying to you. So if you like to write, get a notebook. I'm a stationery freak. Tell your mommy, buy a journal for you. And every day write in that journal. If you look outside and you see the grass looking beautiful, right? The imagery of the grass. The sun is shining on the grass and it's reflecting off. And the grass is swaying in the trees like dancers dancing to music, giving praise to God. The leaves, the arms of the leaves look like they are raised towards heaven, giving thanks to God. As I look at the grass, I think of prayer. Write it down. Because as a writer, you have to observe how hot is the sun, how green is the grass, how pleasant is the person. I went to the book and I saw laughter creeping down the face and stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that was Since from Form 1. Auntie Petra sounding a little crazy. That's how much Auntie Petra loves to write. So those are some of my early writings. And of course, these are some of the books I showed you. And that's on the back towards me, all the different books I would have written on top and all the different journals and stuff. Who is Emily Peterson? Stop asking me to share my screen. Stop playing with the devices. And then you have all the different journals below there. Now, because Auntie Petra is writing a book, Auntie Petra has so much in her mind. Who is Emily Peterson? Someone named Emily Peterson continues to request remote control of the screen. I'm continuing to decline because I'm assuming it's a student, right? Now, my inspirational blog. I get, sometimes I'm over the sink or in the bathroom or wherever, and I'm walking in the yard and these stuff just come to my mind. I'm not Ellen G. White, she used to get visions, but God impresses all of us. So these stuff would come to my mind, you know, text. I remember once I looked at the flower and an object lesson hit me in terms of all the flowers are in the same pot, but they grow differently. I went and wrote a blog on that. Once I was looking through the window, a bird fell from the tree onto the ground, helpless. And I thought, oh my goodness, if we weren't there to save the bird, what would have happened? Good thing an unlikely stranger happened. And good thing he recovered from the long hard fall. I wrote a blog on that. This most recent blog, I was on campus in UWI and I saw a snail. And the snail think it's safe because it has a shell. And I thought, look how vulnerable this snail is. I could kill it. And even as I was looking at the snail, somebody could have attacked me too because I was in a lonely place. And I thought, oh my goodness, secure in a shell. And I wrote about vulnerability. You know, as writers, you get inspiration and you write. I can't wait to write a book on these things. So I have gone to blogging so that I can share inspiration. Remember, send it clear around the world. And people from Suriname and all over are reading my blogs, America and England, and they're sending it to other people. That's what Sister White said, publishing. Our ancestors said that. Our heritage says that, right? And it will go clear around the world. And guess what? The technology is allowing us to go clear around the world. So my writings are also going clear around the world. And God is impressing me and motivating me. So I also have a website. You can check my website. All right, my blog, for those of you who want to read the blogs, take note of the blog address, petrapierrobertson.blogspot.com. Someone could probably write it in the chat. I am mindful. How much more time do I have? About 10. Could you tell me how much more time I have? About 10 more minutes or 5? Miss? Could you tell me how much more time I have?
2 minutes, miss.
Oh, 2 minutes. Oh my gosh, time flew. So take note of the blog, petrapierrobertson.blogspot.com. Take note of the website, pierrobertson.com. So you may say, how was I able to write so much? I read, I researched, as I told you, I wrote my thoughts, my ideas, my dreams, my impressions. I observed, continuing professional development. I attend workshop, webinars, training, and of course, put that with discipline, hard work, dedication, practice, and experience. As Sister White says, clear around the world via technology. In his own words, which you can read, it's available on Kindle. I wrote this book on the heritage of Mova Church, just like the pioneers. I didn't want it lost. And my father was one of the pioneers, and he would always tell me the story, Guess what? My father died, you know? So if I were to go and ask, I can't go and ask him whenever we have a pathfinder thing, Daddy, how Mova Church start again? I'll go and do a seance in the cemetery, and we don't believe in that. But guess what? Just before he died, the spirit said, write what he is telling you. write what he's telling you. So I started writing it down. I made a scrapbook. The Spirit said, publish what he's telling you. Publish it now and give it to him and let him vet it. So last 2020, he died 2021. 2020, I said, Daddy, all these things you tell me, let me vet it. What you say happened again? And what you say happened there again? And I published the book and I gave it to him as a birthday present. And he was so happy, and I'm so happy I did that, because he died 1 year later. Where would I get the information? So this is how we said it started in the month of April 1959. I know we're wrong. A tent was erected on the grounds which currently house the Chinnapu Government School, and a few precious souls were baptized and received into the fellowship of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. 3 months later, in July, the tent was removed from Chinnapu and erected on the grounds of a recreation club. The proprietor, Mr. Spinks, he must be dead long time, who will remember that, show his kind courtesy. Another short crusade was held, and a few more persons gave their heart to the Lord, becoming members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Because of the distance between the districts and the need for establishing the working mover, the pastor decided to form a nucleus with a new group of believers, along with members of the Laventille Church, who lived in the district of Mover and were interested in fellowship. And then they talk about the members who left Laventille Church were Gwendolyn Brown, her brother, who was known as her mother, Mother Brown, sister Lindy Francis. And the nucleus of believers met under a tent in Tapana Street. And then he said, the church board who planned that crusade, here's what he said. In the year 1959, Laventille Church Board, under the leadership of, here his name, F.A.C. Bro, and the direction of the Spirit of God, decided to evangelize Mover. The church board consisted of, here these people: C.J. Otley, first elder, Edward Agard, Beryl Agard, Selma Murray, Gilbert Murray, Huldah Edwards, Colville Alexander, Boxell Ennis, Fitzroy Ennis, and John Pierre. John Pierre, at the time of writing, he was the last surviving member of the church. But and guess what? Some of these names I called, maybe your ancestors, you wouldn't know they were involved except you read it. So that's why it's so important. And as I end, I will just read one little excerpt from Lost in the Hills, and I will turn you back over to your teacher, because it would be wrong for me as an author to come and talk to you and not read from my book. So Lost in the Hills, I told you we were lost. So here is what happened. Each said, I'm going to show you how God delivered us as young people, but you have to read the book to determine. So if there isn't a book in Westport, Pine Haven, no, Maracas SDA, you all need to contact me to get 3 copies each for your library. Buy local. People, I think, are calling it a night. Pete said sleepy. This is after they're sitting on a log in the dark on the hill, the place pitch black, the place wet. They're sitting on a log and a marijuana patch to sleep. She was tired, calling it a night. You're not serious, dog. Look at it incredulously and burst out laughing, because how you could call it a night when it have no place to sleep? You up in the middle of the hills in Diego Martin Forest in darkness with a wild monkey and tiger cat and marijuana patch and talking about sleeping. So she said, boy, I sleepy. She bent her head on the shoulder of Hank, who was sitting next to her on the log. Jade was next to Peach. She placed her head on Peach's shoulder. So they fell asleep on one another's shoulder. Jade fell asleep soon after. Eventually, most people fell asleep on each other's shoulders. And when shoulders became tiring, we bend down on one another, laugh and sleep, because we are sleeping for the entire night on a log in wet clothes on a marijuana patch. A rustling sound. Peach stirred. It was coming from the grass around them. It was a grassy, deserted place, and we were high up in the hills. Her heart thumped in her chest. Tiger cats, because they told them it had tiger cats up there. Jade, her sister, was racing towards her from the direction of the bushes. Her eyes open wide, she frightened. She said, I see a man in white, standing up, staring at us. So Peach wake up one time. She said, what? And she find that she was now crammed between Hazel. During the night, persons switched positions, but Peach had slept continuously. Peach said, what? Jade, I were white. She said, a man in white, just standing up, staring at us over there. And she pointed, and Jade pointing on her finger, trembling, and she pointed at a dark, dark area in a region of the area they had not explored. She said, someone in white over there. She leave out verbs for she frightened. She just communicated in the course of her fright. Peach said, in white? So Peach frightened now. Jade now come and squeeze between Peach and Hazel. And everybody sit down now. Everybody quiet. And what I don't know is, down the mountain, across Trinidad and Tobago, unknown to them, they were headline news on TV and radio. News that was repeated all through the night and into the next day. Here the news that was repeated. Lost in the hills. 25 young hikers are missing, but the media got it wrong. It was only about 11 of us, 15 of us that were up in the hills. So this little scribble I scribbled when I came from the hike, lost in the hills, became lost in the hills. So for my little budding writers, I hope I encouraged you to read and to do a little more. I was going to read for you just this little section from the 6th day, not to thing you. On the Sabbath, this is what it said. And in this one, it is using imagery and alliteration and onomatopoeia, right? Words you learn in English. Then one day, just before the evening oblation, a sacrament that each division participated in, though their prayers and worship attended in tandem at the same hour, sun set during the twilight zone. At the beginning of each new day, in honor of the Almighty, Rahel, in a reflective mood, wondered as she prepared her heart for worship. It was approaching the end of the 6th day, just before the beginning of the 7th, the twilight hour hovered. Here now is the alliteration. Serenity settled, spikes spilled from the setting sun. Here is the sibilant song, clothing craggy rocks in studded colored coats of gold, yellow, and burnt or orange. The reflection filled cracked crevices with a molten volcanic apparition. The surrounding grass was like burnished copper. Rahel gazed at the bejeweled scenery, forgetting. She forgot the legendary warning that strange things on the borderline attracted unsuspected wanderers. Beckoned by the beauty of the mysterious, dazzling display, her eyes dreamily drifted, drawn by the golden, glittering canvas of the sky. Mindlessly she walked, a dreamer and a lover of nature, compelled against her will, and in walking, bejeweled, bedazzled by the lovely nature, she was captured. And that is the conflict in the plot of the 6th day. So I've shared with you readings from 2 of my novels. I'll end here. I went a little over time, but I hope I've motivated all my little writers to continue the heritage of writing, because your work will go clear across the world. I turn you back over to your teacher. And this is my contacts professionally and personally, my online presence. So over to you, Miss.
Thank you so much, Miss Petra Pierre Robertson. I want to share with the other students and saying thank you so much. Wow, what a phenomenal, phenomenal presentation. So students, you see how rich our heritage is. We have persons like Miss Pierre Robertson, who has done extremely well by adding her wealth of knowledge and inspiration to our heritage of writings. Thank you so much, Ms. Robinson, for taking the
You are
time
welcome.
to share your knowledge with us.